Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Day one of Fantastic Five, but it's not a Monday. So it's a little bit different than what we're used to. But that makes these videos even more important because technically we're looking at this like we're a couple of days behind. You're only going to get to see a video today and a video tomorrow before your final Fan 5 on Friday. So if you've already completed the questions, which you should have, if you're watching this, you probably realize that these are getting a little bit more challenging. You might have no idea at all how to solve one of these questions. Y'all, I'm starting to see it in class a little bit more. When I'm going over these, if you want to stop and take notes, maybe copy down exactly how I am solving a question, do that because I let you use those notes. I don't let you use them on Fridays, but I let you use those notes every single day that you do Fan 5 so it can kind of serve as a reminder of what I did when I went over it. You might see me do it a way and you may think, well, I got another way that works. That's fine. We've said that a lot too. It's not my way or the highway. I'm just going to show you how I would solve these questions, and it may end up helping you get the question correct tomorrow. So again, these videos, always important, but even more so important for this week. Looking at the questions, I don't think we should be getting less than a 2. The only reason I say that is because you do have a factors question and you do have a prime composite question, which we had a prime composite, I think, last week actually, but we spent all last week talking about that stuff. So I would expect everybody to get a couple of these right and maybe even get some 3s and some 4s. I would be surprised if we had a 5 today, but you guys have surprised me before. So we'll get right into it. We're going to look at number 1, and it's just straight subtraction, which normally wouldn't stress us out too much, but when you're subtracting across zeros, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and stack them. Make sure all my place values are lined up. My hope would be that everybody is asking themselves the same question when we're doing subtraction. It's almost like you're talking to yourself, which sometimes you do that. That's fine. But like if I'm looking in the ones place, 0 minus 2, same question I ask myself every time. Is there more on top or more on the floor? If there's more on top, no need to stop, just subtract. If there's more on the floor, you got to go next door and get 10 more. So you've heard me say that in class. In our case, in the ones place, can't do 0 minus 2. More on the floor, go next door and get 10 more. But when you go next door, and if you're following my cursor, you can see where I'm pointing. When you knock on that door, nobody's home. You can't borrow from 0. If you go up to somebody with no money, they can't lend you money. So when I go next door to borrow, there's nothing there. This is what I do. Starting at that empty house, I box that house off and the rest of the neighborhood, just like this. So when I go next door, if it's empty, I start at that house and box off the rest of the number, box off the rest of the neighborhood. So I went from having 0 10s to now having what's in that box, 500 10s. And you kind of have to ignore that comma. And out of those 500 10s, just like when we borrow, I only need 1. So if I take 1 away from 500, that becomes 499. And that 10 that I took, I can add it to my ones place and make this 0 a 10. So anytime you go to do your regrouping and nobody's home next door, I always box off the rest of the number. Then you just get to subtract. I got 10 minus 2, which I know is 8. I've got 9 minus 7, which I know is 2. 9 minus 4, I know is 5. Go ahead and put my comma down. And then if I do 4 minus 1, that gives me 3,528. And very similar to, I don't even remember if it was last week or the week before, a lot of these answer choices look the same. Just because you do the right work doesn't mean you're going to click the right answer. Look at it carefully, and you would have had C right here. Make sure they match, 3,528. So I think most of you probably do it a way that's fairly similar to this, which is fine. You might not do that boxing method that I just showed you. But if you missed that one today, you struggled, maybe taking those as notes can help you with your subtraction tomorrow. All right, moving on. So number 2, this is going to be one of those read a little, do a little questions. It says there are 9 boxes of oranges at Food Lion Each box has 8 oranges inside. It says if 16 oranges are eaten, how many oranges are left? Something that's going to make this math easier. If you know your keywords, you're putting yourself in a good position to be successful. Some words that stick out to me. Boxes of is one. And boxes of is like rows of, groups of. Okay, so when I see that, normally I'm thinking, ooh, I'm going to multiply. Now, when I see the word each, a lot of people automatically think, ooh, multiply. But again, it depends how it's used. It does not always mean you're going to multiply. Sometimes it can mean that you're going to divide. So I know I'm kind of going one path right now with those two. All right, now, I've also seen the words eaten and left. Now, when you eat something, it's gone, right? And then we know when we're talking about what's left, those two go together with the same operation being subtraction. So I feel pretty good about probably multiplying. I feel great about subtracting. That each could possibly mean division, but we'll see how it's used with this question. So when I say read a little, do a little, I'm a very visual person. So whatever it says I have or whatever I need to do, it's just what I do. So if it says there's 9 boxes of oranges, y'all, I'm drawing 9 boxes. And it takes me 10 seconds. 9 boxes. And then it says each box has 8 oranges inside. Same deal. I can put 8 inside each. Now you could put 8 individual dots or 8 tallies. That might be helpful, but if you are somebody who's really good with your multiplication facts, just putting the numbers good. So I've only read 2 sentences so far. I still haven't read the actual question yet. But what I could do, what I could figure out right now is how many oranges I have. You can go 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 9 different times, or instead of repeated addition, you could just multiply. So I could do 9 times 8 and get 72. Now that 72 is not my answer, even though it's an answer choice. That just tells me right now I have 72 oranges. All right, so that's 2 sentences. I'm going to keep reading now. It says, if 16 oranges are eaten, how many are left? Well, we just figured out that we have 72 oranges. We're going to eat 16 of those oranges, which are going to be leaving. So we know we're going to subtract. Kind of goes back to number 1. Question I'm going to ask, do I have more on top or more on the floor? Well, I've got more on the floor, so I'll go next door and get 10 more. I have 7 10s, but I only need 1. So that's going to change to a 6. And I'm going to take that 10 and add it to 2 to make this a 12. Now I can subtract. I can do 12 minus 6 and get 6. 6 minus 1 and get 5. That would leave me with B, 56 oranges. So again, I can close my eyes and I can see 9 boxes. I can see 8 oranges inside. I can see somebody actually eating them. I'm a visual person. I like to make the movie in my head. To me, it just helps me solve it. It helps me do the work too. So if you're somebody who can look at that and just say, okay, I know I need to do 9 times 8 minus 16, that's fine. But if you're ever looking at a question and maybe you don't know the keywords or you don't know what it's asking you to do, draw a picture. It helps, I promise. All right, 1 and 2 down. The next 2 are the ones that I would have expected you to get correct. And I'm going to show you the same way that I've shown you in previous videos and in class. If it's asking me which choice below lists all the factors for 32, I start with the same factor pair for every number, 1 and the number itself. So I would start with 1 times 32. All right. And then after 1 comes 2, so I'm going to try 2. And I know 2 is going to work because 32 is an even number. So if you don't know 2 times something, you could list your multiples, 2, 4, 6, 8. Or if you don't know the multiplication, use the division. Take your calculator, type in 32 divided by 2, and you'd get 16. Again, after 2 comes 3, so I might try 3. If I don't know 3 times something to get 32, type in 32 divided by 3 and see if it goes in evenly. If you do that, you're going to realize that 3 does not work. 3 is not a factor. So then I would try 4. Again, if you know your facts, you know 4 times 8 gives you 32. If not, you might have to divide. Now, technically I'm done, but I would still try any number that falls between 4 and 8. So I would still try 5, which 32 does not end in 0 or 5, so you know that doesn't work. I would try 6, but if you were listing the multiples of 6, you wouldn't land on 32. Same thing for 7. I would try 7. 32 is not a multiple of 7, so it could not be a factor of 32. Now I would be done. Once I've got my factor pairs, then again, I'm completely ignoring the answer choices right now. I would just go ahead and make my factor rainbow by putting all these in order. Then I would look at my answer choices and see what matches. Like I would go ahead and get rid of D immediately because you can't have a factor rainbow for 32 without 1 and 32. All right. If I look at C, that one matches exactly what I have. Now, if I'm looking at B, I know I'm kind of working backwards here. If I'm looking at B, it looks very similar, but it has 6 as a factor of 32, which we just proved was incorrect. And then same thing up there for B, it has, or A, I'm sorry, it has 6, but it also has 3 on there. We just proved that those would not be factors either. So that would be C. So same way I've been doing it, list all your factor pairs, go back to your factor rainbow. Don't even look at the answer choices until you're done. But if you use that calculator, I'm telling you, y'all, you'll get that one right every time. That's one where I say it's almost like cheating. It's not, but it feels that way. All right. Number 4, I'm now not worried about you knowing the definition. I know that you know what a prime number is. Now I'm just worried about whether or not you're going to take the time to list the factors of these numbers to prove that your answer is correct. So we know a prime number only has 2 factors, 1 and the number itself. The thing you need to wipe out of your brain, just because it's even does not mean it's composite. 99% of the time it is, but it doesn't. And then just because it's odd doesn't mean it's prime. Now, all of your answer choices here are even. But if you list your numbers and list all your factors, you're going to see that 2 is the only one up here that is prime. Because if I had 4, 6, 8. If I had to list my factors for 2, I start with the first one. 1 times the number itself, 1 times 2. Guys, you know you're done. There's no numbers in between 1 and 2. That's 2 factors. Now with 4, you could do 1 times 4. You could also do 2 times 2. That's composite. For 6, you can go 1 times 6, 2 times 3. Also composite. And then for 8, you can go 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Also composite. So 2 is an even number, but it can still be prime. Now every even number after that's composite, but with 2, don't just look at it and automatically think, ooh, that's composite. Because in this case, 2 would be prime. So that's another one that I think at this point we should be getting correct. And if we're not, I guess it's good that we're practicing it because you're going to have a test when you come back on Tuesday. And this week we're going to be reviewing all that stuff. So don't stress, don't freak out. But you will have that test when you come back to your in-person week. Number 5, this is the one that I expect to have some low numbers, and that's okay. That's the way it should be. But then I'm going to be able to really tell who watched these videos, because if you missed it today, you might even miss it tomorrow. I'm anxious to see where we go as a class with our numbers from Wednesday to Friday. So the picture that I'm going to draw is basically going to be the same picture I always draw with a question like this, and I'll explain that in just a second. It says there are 45 boys at the dance. 3/5 of them got scared of the girls and left. How many boys are still at the dance? So anytime that I am finding the fraction of a whole number, I draw this picture. Here are my 45 boys. So that fraction is important because it's going to tell me how I'm going to split my picture. Because when we're dealing with fractions, and I know you've only dealt with them a little bit in 3rd grade, none at all this year. If that says 3/5, that means I need to take my 45 boys and split that into fifths, 5 different sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The picture is supposed to show 5 equal sections. I've got fat fingers. I'm not very good at splitting evenly. So I just took my 45 boys and split them into 5 equal sections. Think about what I just said. I just took 45 boys and split them into 5 equal sections. When you see or hear that word split, one operation should come into your brain, and that's division. So basically, I just took my 45 boys here and split them into 5 groups. Now, if you don't know 45 divided by 5, you can use the opposite. You can use multiplication. Let me come over here where I've got a little bit more room. Because 5 times something is going to give you 45. Okay? List your multiples if you have to, or you just know your facts. If you did 45 divided by 5, that would give you 9. Now, that 9 is important. You have to know what that 9 is representing because it's not your answer. It just depends what the question's asking. But when I took my 45 boys, split them into fifths, there's 9 in each section, which means there's 9 here, 9 here, 9 here, 9 here, and 9 here. Those all add up to give me 45 total boys, okay? So it says 3/5 of those boys got scared and they left. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5. These 3 sections, 3 groups of boys left. It wants to know how many boys are still there. How many boys are brave enough to stay behind and dance with those girls? These are the boys that are still there right here. I've got 9, I've got 9. You could do 9 plus 9. You could do 9 times 2. Either way, that answer would be 18. The question might change tomorrow. Like, I could have asked you how many boys left the dance. And that would have been these 3 groups of 9, which in that case would have been 27. So the picture is going to help, but it's not going to help unless you read the question. I'll go ahead and do another one just real quick. A little bonus. Maybe if I can get this off. Okay, so let's say instead of 45 and 3/5, let's say there are 27 boys at the dance and 1/3 of them got scared. Same deal. If I'm finding the fraction of a whole number, I'll draw the same picture. Here's my 27 boys. And if it says 1/3, that means I need to split my picture into thirds, 3 sections. So I got 1, 2, 3. So now you got to write the equation that matches what you just did to that picture. You just took 27 and split it into 3 sections. Okay? Now again, you got to know your facts. You got to either know 3 times something to get 27, or you're going to have to do a little work to figure it out. But if you know your facts, you know 27 divided by 3 is 9. Again, 9 represents something very important. It just works out that this is the same number. But that 9 means there is 9 in each third. Add those together, I get the full 27. So 1/3 of them left. That means these 9 dudes right here, they're gone. These are the dudes that stayed behind. If it was asking how many left, you would look and say, ooh, 9 of them left. But if it wanted to know how many stayed behind, you go 9 plus 9, 9 times 2, and you would get 18. That picture will work every time. It gets a lot harder, excuse me, it gets a lot harder if you don't know your multiplication facts. So today's Fan 5 video is definitely going to be a lot longer than the one that you see tomorrow. You're not going to see one on Friday. You're just going to see this one. You're going to see the one that you see tomorrow morning as well. It might not be a bad idea to rewatch this one before you do Fantastic 5 on Thursday. Just kind of a little refresher. Give you a chance to take more notes if you need to. But whether or not your score goes up really depends on how much work you put into watching the videos, taking the notes, and then using that information that you got to better your score. So I'm anxious to see how we do as a class. If you have questions, if something still doesn't make sense, you guys know how to get to me on email. You know how to Zoom with me. I'm more than happy to help you because, again, I want this to feel like you're getting the same amount of help and able to ask the same amount of questions that you would if you were in the classroom. So I'm anxious to see how we do. Keep working hard, and we'll see you guys in a little while.